Felicia, tell us about your own personal evolution of race consciousness. What's your story?
Yeah, evolution is super the right word. Um, after listening to your poem, I thought about a story my mom's told. I would have had to have been 3 or so. I don't remember this occurring, but she's told me she used to work at a radio station, and when she was walking me, she would take me to work with her. That all growing up, my mom would just drag us to work with her when we weren't at school. Um, and she was taking me into work with her, and we apparently passed a black man, and I said, "Mommy, he's black." And he said, "Yes, I am." And my mom said, "Yes, he is." So I also, before I was 6, was made aware of races somewhere along that line. um I remember caring about like the history of racism, and sorry, I got cat hair. uh Caring about the history of racism and like the oppression that like black folk and native folk and people of color faced in this country from a pretty young age. In 5th grade, our teacher decided to show us Roots, and I was kind of obsessed, um, because it was so bad, like what happened. And I empathized so much with the enslaved people. And it wasn't the first time I'd heard about slavery, I don't think, but it was, the most visceral. Um, and then I remember one of the girls in our class, her mom made us stop watching because there was an implied rape scene. They don't show it, thank goodness, um, because like that's a lot. Don't, but it was heavily implied, and it's I mean, it is traumatizing to a certain extent, right? Um, but I really wanted to finish it, and this is before you could like rent TV shows or stream or anything. So I never did get to finish it, and I just realized I haven't ever started it up again, and I should.
You know
Uh
how I watched it is we went to the public library and checked out the VHS tapes.
yeah.
Yeah,
I spent a
that's how.
lot of time at the library as a kid
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah, me too.
And uh love libraries. I get all my audiobooks from the library. It's my favorite thing. So I remember just being like really concerned, and um I I told you that like I was raised not Mormon in Utah. Like I'm still here. I've never been Mormon. I was born into a family that's not Mormon, and that kind of put me on the outside of mainstream society in Utah. It is very much an in-group out-group here. And I think that kind of primed me to empathize with other people who were othered and put up to the outside of mainstream. By the time I got into middle school, I grew up in a really white area, but when I went to middle school, there was finally some diversity going on there, and I instantly made friends with like the one black girl that was in any of my classes. Um, and I don't, I mean, I'm sure that I was insensitive or something at certain points. It didn't really come up. We were still pretty young. But I do remember other kids, and like the way, like one memory that sticks out really like vividly in my brain is the other kids all like standing, like all of us are standing in a circle. She's not like in the middle, she's part of the whole circle, and like all the other kids ask to touch her hair. And I remember being like baffled, like I did not ever imagine, I didn't even think to do that. It was and
It's
I'd noticed her
incredibly
hair because she
common.
would.
I'm sure you know now it's incredibly common and
Oh,
that there are even laws about it.
oh boy, do I know now. um But and I noticed we talked about her hair before because she wears it. She wears it. I don't know what she's. I don't know where she is now. But she would wear it in an afro, and like, which was so cool. And we talked about her hair, but I never. But and she was adopted and raised in a white family, and it didn't. I could tell she was uncomfortable, but she also didn't seem to have like a context just in my memory. But I remember that happening. I remember, and then just as you mature, um, you start to notice more and more things. But it wasn't until I was out of high school that I really started researching on my own time, why does racism uh like why would this even happen? I knew about the Tulsa massacre in like 2010, so way before Watchmen. um I don't know, I just part of it was a journey about like feminism as well, and having experienced quite a bit of misogyny already by the time I was 18 years old, and just being acutely aware of my own oppression. I started to want to understand how these things come about. And then from there, it just kind of grew. I know I sought out on social media because, again, Utah, very white place. I sought out people of color to follow and listen to. And then working in grocery retail, you make a lot more friends than people of color as well. I was just it was I was all, like I said, I wasn't part of the mainstream culture, and I wasn't welcome in it because I didn't convert and didn't want to. Uh so I ended up finding a lot of. I should also say I was queer. I've been queer the whole time. The whole time I was queer. So that was another way I was on the outs. Uh I knew since I was a teenager I was queer. So but you end up meeting a lot of people, more people of color here in Utah in places like that. So I ended up just trying to listen and then research and read as things came up. Ultimately, I found like Black radical politics and BreadTube, which I'm sure you've heard of BreadTube.
I have.
And um, between a friend of mine, uh, he used to be on this show, Dogma Debate. I think that's what it's called. Alex Jules. He first introduced me to anti-capitalism as like a thing, and then I got more education on that, and I followed that path down, and now I'm an anarchist. So but I'm still trying to educate myself. I'm still trying to learn and understand how these things function. But for a long time in my adult life, especially since I got divorced because I was married to a guy in the military, which is a whole limiting factor in itself. But since then, I've ended up finding myself friends with and caring a lot about and dating non-white people. And that's just end up where I end up socially. Yeah, I've been there when the things happen. And instead of trying to make it.
Tell us a story about being there when the thing happens.
Okay. Um, if he's watching, he's gonna love that I tell the story. So friend of mine and I were out at a bar, and he'd gone out with me while I had a smoke, and I told. So he was a black man. He is a black man. He was. It's a current. It's not really a changing. But I was telling him about another black friend that came to visit me. And how before him and I went out to a bar, I warned him that in Utah, because he's not from here, he's never been here, is that in Utah, a white guy is going to walk up to you and he is going to say, I'm not racist, but I am not going to tell you how you should respond to that, because I'm not going to have any problem with however you choose to respond to that. But I do feel you deserve a warning. And we were in an Uber and our Uber driver was Asian and he goes, yes, that is going to happen. And this guy is like, you are kidding me. White people do not do that here. And we're like, oh boy, do they? So I'm telling this other Black friend about that. And then we go in and we start playing pool. And a white guy walks up to us. I mean, it was like 5 minutes. And he goes, hey, I'm not racist, but is it hard being in an interracial relationship? And we both just stare for a second. And then I look at the guy and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, just go, walk away. And he was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And my friend, he's just like, we were just talking about that. Like, oh my God, it's the most predictable thing in Utah. So I've also seen like Black friends ignored in shops. I've just seen people say shit. And like I said, when I was a kid, like asking to touch her hair, and I was so baffled. And now, and what was their home life like where all of them were like, I also would like to, I don't understand how that thought occurs unless like somebody introduces it, I guess.
I don't know. Like, I mean, it's Inception maybe, but but yeah,
it's apparently a thing.
It is.
I mean, I know it is. I've seen it. It's just that's one of those things where I'm just like, how does this one happen? How does it happen?
It happens. I think it happens because of a combination of privilege, right? And curiosity. You know? You're curious. It's something foreign to you. You haven't experienced it. You have a curiosity about it. But your privilege has like made you believe that, you know, you can touch this person. You can reach out and just touch this person. Sometimes people don't even ask. They just grab. There's plenty of videos on the internet now where you can watch people just reach out and grab Black women's hair. You can watch it. So, yeah.
Gives me anxiety. Growing up in Mormon Utah, the Mormon church is incredibly misogynistic, deeply patriarchal. I have no qualms just calling that out and just saying like it's misogyny. And all growing up, I heard like, or at least like when I was a teenager, as I was approaching womanhood, I heard so much like, well, what more important thing could you do in society other than bring new life into it? And I know people would say this to me as like a child still.
I would be like, can you like stand by while I make a list of like hundreds of things?
Right? And it's like, if people want to do that, like obviously you should be able to choose that. It's a lot of work, and it is, I commend you. I care a lot about children. I love kids. I care about kids. I really, when I was 15, 16, 17, I was leaning that I wasn't going to have any, and I am sure now. And so like, how demeaning is that? Right? Like,
it's dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing because
it's dehumanizing.
It's saying that your only worth is your womb, you know, is what your womb can produce, and there's nothing even that anyone could even imagine would be as worthwhile as that.
I serve a particular utility, and if I do not serve that utility, I am less worthy, and that's disgusting. But that is like very much how, like, it is an objectification. Racism and that prejudice, like you said, it's dangerous. It is an objectification. It is that white guy treating my friend like he was the object of curiosity. instead of going, oh, those people are minding their own business, I'm going to mind my own business and then maybe read a book or something. No, he thought he was entitled to our vulnerability, our privacy, just because a Black man existed near him. It's objectifying.
Like, minimize people's fear of doing that, because ultimately it is scary. You know, like, I mean, in order for me to step out and put myself out there and be vulnerable on this show, I had to go through my own process. You know, it was a 3-month long process of rumination, thinking about what it might mean to put myself out there. When I told people, my friends and family, I was going to do it, their first thing that they said was they were every single person to a person was afraid for my physical safety. So, like,
oh my God.
Yeah. And, you know, and not to mention, you know, you said earlier, oh, in Utah, a white person will say, I'm not racist, but like, I've been told that in multiple states. You know, like, that's not like a Utah thing. That's a...
Oh, no, I don't think it's just a Utah thing. It's just, I think that the white privilege here is so strong. It is.
Y'all got a different flavor, huh?
Yeah, it's
spicy,
aggressive.
huh?
Yes, that's about the only thing that the Mormons like spicy. Well, and curiosity is itself a pretty vulnerable thing to indulge, because that means that you admit that you actually don't know shit and that you want to learn more. But especially in our society, admitting that is weakness, and that affects your position in the hierarchy. But I think that's more no, it's not more men. It depends. I think men are expected to never admit weakness, whereas women are simultaneously always supposed to admit graciousness and curiosity, but also never back down. So
it's all very confusing, right? And
it is. I think, and obviously, I think that's particularly true for Black women. Especially because Black women also get like misogynoir, you know, like that particular blend of misogyny and racism that's like, but you're a woman, but you're also terrifying because you're Black. Like, so yeah. But I think that in our society that curiosity is kind of seen as a weakness. I mean, people say the phrase, you know, curiosity killed the cat, but what is it? But the knowledge he gained brought him back is the whole phrase. Like,
no, I like that. It is difficult in this context though, because like there are horrific things that you're going to learn when you dig into it. Like, for the fact that, you know, you're just talking about Black women and how they have it. Well, when you learn that there's like literally financial institutions whose main source of business is mortgaging Black women's wombs, like, then you get to understand the depth of the depravity that this country fell to. I don't think a lot of people understand, you know, like, I mean, any of the worst things that you can think of that happened to people in history happened to these slaves. And that's not really what people are taught when they go to school. Even people who get education about slavery, a lot of people are not taught about the level of brutality and depravity that was government sanctioned.
You're totally right.
So I just think that, like, because of that, you know, the lack of education, not to mention like all of the brutality and the despotism that went on, you know, from the point of the slaves being emancipated to present day. I mean, it fills volumes. And so,
as an amateur philosopher, but like trying to understand why so many people who are clearly so miserable in their lives are so committed to white supremacy and to capitalism and to just a life that sucks and has not served you. Why are you so committed to this?
Well, and, I mean, we created a society that basically worships money. So, like, you know, money is practically religion at this point. And so, like,
I would agree.
People try to fill the hole in their hearts with money, you know, and that's what they're encouraged to do and taught to do because they want people to do that.
And they've been promised that it will work, right? Like, they've been promised that consumerism is the path to happiness. And that if they follow the rules and they do the things that they were told, that that's how you get happy. Because that's how the rich got happy. Don't they seem happy? Don't they seem healthy and and flourishing? Um, um, and it just doesn't. It keeps not working, right? And now
I mean,
these
you could go on YouTube and watch celebrity after celebrity after celebrity explain that once they got money, they felt they were less happy, and then they had to introspect and understand what was going on because I thought I made it, I got everything that I was working toward and wanted, so why am I not happy? There's
happiness
yeah.
is what happens when all your dreams come true. That's what Galinda said in Wicked. I am a theater kid. Yeah, but exactly, right? No, the rich, some more news on YouTube has a great video about how the rich are not okay, that they are unwell. I believe that power, like power over others, power that is undistributed between the people, is bad for your brain. It hurts you. It makes you sick. Sorry, cat.
It makes people delusional, you know. It gives people
Yeah.
a false sense of reality and a false sense of themselves, and you know it's very difficult to break because you're protected. Money protects you from protects the illusion.
Oh my
So
God, yes.
yeah,
I've been saying that a lot. And now I'm starting to understand why they're so committed to this. And it's because they've been denied the language to place their discontent, right? So many, especially boomers, have been fully denied the language to say, this is not working for me. This is not what I want. And to have the right to declare that you have wants and that you want something different. You know, that's why I think so many boomers were so convinced that being gay is a choice. Like, because they would have chosen a different life for themselves, but that's not what you do. And I think that there's just such an inability to engage with their fear that they've been lied to, that they're just like, no, if we just make everyone do the things that we're supposed to do, the right way to live, then all the world's problems will just magically disappear, and then everything will be fine, and then I'll be happy. I'll be happy, and I won't be afraid, and I'll be happy. I'll be happy.
it's
uh
like so sad and kind of pathetic to be
it
honest.
is. It
Like
is
I
so
don't want to be
sad.
negative, but like that is just it's very hard for me to accept that. I know that you're right that people think like that, but it's just ugh. It gave me the shivers when you were saying that
Well,
because it just
it's sort of terrifying.
it's no way to live. It's no
It
way to
is
live.
not. It's no way to live. And like, as far as we're aware, as like far as we can tell, you get the one. Like,
Yeah, and you're gonna just be the living dead and just that's how you're gonna use it. Like I just it's so hard for me to
but
understand.
but an animal in distress is the most dangerous animal, you know? So, and we are animals. At the end of the day, we are part of nature and a product of it. Have you ever heard of Jeff Charlotte? He's a journalist, he's a writer. He just had a book come out called The Undertow. And so Jeff is Jewish, and he has been studying religiosity in America for decades now. And this latest book is about the undercurrent of fascism in the United States and whiteness. And you know, he's Jewish, but he's also white, so he has access to like dual identities, right? Um, and he started talking towards the end of the book. He starts talking about, but you can also on his Twitter, he talks about how Gen Z is they're ready to go. Like they are, and I think this is why the conservative push to get kids pushed off the internet. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Utah trying to like age gate the entire internet.
I am familiar. Yeah, there's all kinds of
Yeah,
efforts. In fact, like that's one of the more later ones. But they've been at this for some time. Yeah,
they yes. I think that's why there is such a strong push for gender conformity, for a very particular view on American history with a certain Christian, like a white supremacist Christian bent to it, like this is a divine country chosen by God to lead the world. And capitalism is good only, and socialism is of the devil, that kind of thing. And I think that there's a push to get kids off the internet, because millennials and Gen Z, we just got on the internet and learned about other options and learned things that we were not formally taught. And then we're able to access education that, like, I wouldn't have been able to access. I didn't graduate college. I didn't have the money for it. It was a class issue. And boy, I don't know how I would have learned about all this stuff if I hadn't had access to it, to the internet. And I think that's why millennials are not going conservative, is we got just so fucked over.
Exactly.
And
Like we yeah, we never we have never gotten our due. Our generation has never
no,
we have never had a chance really. And like
no.
and so like you're right. It's like I think that plays a big role in why a lot of millennials are like, F this, like I'm not going along to get along. Like I mean, what has that ever
Right.
gotten me? Like
So
literally
like,
nothing.
even as I'm aging and um a modicum of financial stability, not real stability, but like all of our bills are getting paid on time now, is finally hitting in my mid 30s. uh it I'm still not feeling that that conservative drive that was common in previous generations. And I think that's because I know better now. I understand how capitalism and patriarchy and ableism and racism function together to empower a very small amount of people and the rest of us to serve those interests. And it doesn't matter if I get a few more crumbs. That system is unjust. It is unconscionable, and a better world is necessary and possible. You can't change my mind on that one. It just is.
I mean, hopefully everybody can agree with at least the last part, whether they agree with the ableism and the racism and the sexism and whatnot. Like, hopefully they can agree that a better world is possible. If you can't even
Yeah.
if you can't even imagine a better world, if you can't like
Have you?
like it's
I,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it would be ideal, sure. Like, everyone should want a better world. But have you watched the alt-right playbook by Dan Olson? It's on YouTube. It's called the
I've
alt-right
heard of it.
playbook.
But I haven't watched it.
You definitely should, because he talks about how there's one video in particular coming to mind, is the I Hate Mondays, and he has more further reading and sources in the description as well. But it's conservatives think things are bad. Like, they think that mortgages are bad and homelessness sucks, but they believe it's like a Monday. There's nothing you can do about Mondays. They just come around every week, and it's just I hate Mondays. Bad things just are. And so a lot of people don't actually believe that there's better things are possible, like, at
Well,
all.
I think what you're describing there is a little bit different. Like, well, maybe it's true that they don't believe that a better world is possible, but like that sounds to me like willfully making sure that that doesn't happen. By
Mm,
not taking accountability. It feels like more like a personal decision not to take accountability and responsibility for being like a citizen of your country, which is what I'm always encouraging people to do. Is like, hey, like guys, we live in a country. Like, we
I
live in
totally get
states,
that.
we live in cities and towns, and like you live with other people. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe not in the same house, but y'all live together, all right? Like,
Totally. No, I have started telling people, like, get over yourself. You're not the only person. uh yeah, because you're I think that's a really fair criticism. That's kind of letting him off the hook a little too much, I think. So
I
it was
really try
it
to
was
make
good.
sure, as much as people have accused me of having a victim ideology and promoting a victim ideology, I actually am a big agency person. I think that it's extremely important to maintain people's agency in these discussions, because ultimately, and this, I'm going to go back to my earlier point, it starts internally. You have to first decide for yourself that it is a meaningful thing to be anti-racist, to be a feminist, to be pro-trans, to advocate for a cause. Like, it's a decision that you make within your own self. That's how it starts. If that never happens, then it's not going to materialize any other way. And
Yeah.
so, whatever decision people want to make, whether you
Well,
want to decide, that you don't want these causes, or that you're going to elevate one over the other, or whatever you're going to do, like, just decide, spend some time, reflect, educate yourself, and then
yeah.
decide.
So yeah, because I think that that's how you combat fragility in yourself as well. Because on my journey, and I'm sure you can have your own version of this, you've made mistakes and you've been insensitive or even defensive at times. And I don't know, somewhere along the line you go, this matters though. And so this is just a momentary feeling, like, I'm feeling defensive because I care about myself and I care about what people think of me, which is an okay thing to do because that's that we're a social animal. Um, and so I don't want people to think badly of me and I don't want to think badly of myself. And you recognize that fear and then you go, you know what? It's going to be okay. Just going to hear what they had to say and you just kind of let that happen. And I think that's how you combat fragility, is instead of reacting with that defensive feeling, you can go, this matters to me though. I care about doing this for real. And so this is worth working past. And
I don't even
I've been
think that you
fortunate.
need to, like, state that directly either. Like, I'm telling you, like,
Yeah.
as a teacher, like, the one thing my students consistently tell me is that I'm one of their favorite teachers because I treat them like a human, you know? And so, like,
I love that
ultimately,
so much.
if your intention if your intention is to communicate with people about these issues, is to hear and understand people's position on the issues, is to share what you know, but not to try to, manipulate them or change their mind or anything, but just to share, just to have a dialogue, just to have an exchange, people will recognize that because it's rare. Like, and like,
Yeah.
they're not used to communicating like that. So a lot of people come on this channel, and they're always like, oh, this is like totally different than any conversation I've really had on this issue typically, because like they're just not used to engaging calmly and like just directly on the
Oh
issue.
yeah. In my personal life, I've made a commitment to talk to people around me. A lot of anti-racist activists have like said, white people, you need to talk to white people. So I have. Uh and yeah, I mean, I've changed minds. I've changed a lot of minds. Just people in my life.
Tell us your proudest story. I would love to hear it.
Okay, the one that I think is like the easiest to elucidate. My mom, who was the one who, yes, he's black. She wasn't like a colorblind person, but she also was, because, product of your time. But back in 2016, she was on the All Lives Matter thing. And I stopped, both my sister and I stopped her and were like, hey, mom, technically, yeah, all lives do matter, but Black lives are not being treated like they matter. So they need priority right now. And she changed her mind. I mean, it was a conversation. It wasn't that quick. It was talking through her feelings and emotions. And it was a bit tense. at times. It can be kind of tense, but we still had the and she will tell you that her daughters changed her mind on this one. She also was like anti-safe space, and then she changed her mind on that one. Like, and she's never been a conservative person. It's just that at the outset, those talking points resonated with a lot of people.
Very interesting,
And
interesting story. It reminds me of my own story. So mine, I mean, I have a million because I've been doing this
yeah,
type of thing for a long time, and not changing people's minds per se. Although I don't like saying that I change people's minds because I feel like, you know, having taught people so many different types of things, like in so many different contexts, like it's not what I did. Like I can see what I
it's
did.
a
What I did was I created an environment for them to change their mind, and like
yes, that's
so
a
like
much better way to put it.
I just feel like it's so important to make sure that people know that that's what I think because, you know, I think people are so concerned about manipulation, mental manipulation, you know? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's such, because it's prominent, right? There's so much propaganda out there right now. And
Yeah,
it's
I
getting
think
more
that's
and more sophisticated. So it's insane.
I think I catch a lot of people off guard too, because I refuse to try and like be sneaky, like a sneaky snake. I'm more interested in just saying exactly what I think about it. And like, fuck patriarchy, fuck that shit. That's misogyny, that's racism. Like, I think that it needs to be said sometimes instead of always was it Frederick Douglass, power never gave anything from asking, never will. I think sometimes we've got to stop pretending, depending on the context, that the propaganda is a legitimate thing that people are saying. And so they will accuse me of acting in bad faith or being dishonest or manipulative just for being incredibly straightforward about how I feel.
Yeah, like it kind of, you know, puts you in a vice, rock and hard place there. Like, what are you supposed to do? You know, you know, all you can do is just, you know, do your best, you know, and how people respond is how they respond, you know, like, I mean, but, you know, props and kudos to, you know, the Angel Eduardos of the world, the people who are out there trying to get people to communicate better, because I do think there is some power in that in terms of you can create a better environment for people to change their minds depending upon how you communicate with them. It's definitely true. I've seen it a million times.
I think the forum matters a lot too. I think whether they're performing or not matters too. Um, However, like, I'm kind of a multitude of tactics kind of gal. Like, I'm favorable to all different styles as long as it's in the struggle together, right?
I'm the same
Solidarity.
way. You know, very revolutionary mindset there, and I also have the same mindset as well. I've actually said as much to John Ward Jr. We had a conversation about that on Twitter at one point. The national ambassador of Braver Angels, but
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know exactly what is necessary to change things in a way that can be more just and flourishing and kind, and collaborative, right? I I
well,
know
let
it's
me tell you a little bit
possible,
about what the Contraband Wagon's trying to do. Okay, you know
right?
we're starting small with our streams and whatnot, but you know we started with live events. I was doing live get-togethers, meetups in state of North Carolina where I live in Central North Carolina, and we would get people from all different walks of life together, and we talk about race, and we did it.
I think this matters, and I think that this is definitely like a necessary part. Uh
What I want to
that's why,
grow it though.
like,
I want to grow it from that. You know, like I mean, that was just the
mm-hmm.
start. Conversation is the start, right? I guess like the question is, how do we mobilize it into action? Well, it starts with people understanding what actions are already going on. Black people have
That's the
been
big
fighting
part.
this battle for generations, and what people don't get is that like a lot of people have never stopped. So a lot of people are making progress, in fact, and a lot of things are going on, but like it's not mainstream news because uh, a fight for racial justice is never going to make mainstream news unless blood is spilled.
Right.
And so ultimately, Like for
I'm a
instance,
big fan of direct action
yeah,
myself. Love a direct action.
but like even if you're not like, it's not reasonable to think that everyone can make a direct action, right?
No.
So like it's just what people need to realize is that there's so many different things that you can do, right? Just educating yourself and just doing the kind of communications and conversations in your circle that we've talked about, that is more than enough. But like also, for instance, the town of Evanston in Illinois, they're giving out reparations. So they are the first city to actually hand out reparations. They give reparations to
That
like
rules.
26 people so far in the form of a $25,000 housing voucher that can be used to for mortgage or for renovations or like maintenance and stuff or whatever.
That is not nothing.
No, it is something. And what's even more important about it is the way that they accomplished it. They went through a very arduous, but like replicable process to get this done. They identified a law that was discriminatory and applied discriminatory in nature, that there was record that that was discriminatorily applied in a certain locality in Evanston. And then they traced the ancestors of who would have been affected by that. And people had to
Rules.
apply for the reparations by showing their ancestry. And there were like hundreds of applications. I think 112 people were approved through that process. And
That's
then,
cool.
and then the number value, the 25,000, that was agreed upon through discussion of
Oh,
the
kind of like a restorative justice kind of thing.
100, exactly, 100%.
Cool. I love that.
It was
That
voted on
rules.
by everyone. Everyone had a chance to make their comments, and then it was voted on. It was almost unanimously passed. And then there was a disagreement
Yay,
about whether,
consensus decision making.
right? It was amazing to hear. She's incredible, and the work that
Yeah.
she's done is incredible. The fact that she got this done is shocking to me. It blew my mind as a lawyer myself, like that she was able to get this far.
How many degrees do you have?
Yeah, three. Yeah, yeah. I was an English major, bachelor's in English, master's in math education, law degree. Yeah.
Cool.
I know. I'm actually writing a book about it right now, like how getting all those degrees has like kind of colored my experience about education in general. Yeah,
I love it.
when it works, it's a good thing, and you just got to be grateful for those small wins, and
Hmm.
those people, you know, I don't think there's obviously the town of Evanston believes those people should get that money, for the harms
Good.
that their ancestors endured and the legacy of those harms that have affected their progeny. And so, they've also given us that blueprint to use in other localities. So one thing that I hope to do as part of my work on the Contraband Wagon, because I'm sure many people don't know anything about this. It sounds like this is the first time you're hearing about these reparations being put out. Yeah. So I don't think it's not a
And
big
I
new,
try to pay attention.
yeah, it's not a big news story out there because, obviously they don't want people to know and they don't want people to think about the implications of that. And, but ultimately their blueprint for getting it done is solid. It is way more solid than I imagined. And so now I've like 180'd my view on reparations because I was not about local reparations. I was like, we need reparations from the federal government. And I was like, and the federal government has shown that they have no interest in making that a reality. And so like I was like, so we should put our focus elsewhere. However, this woman, let me pull up her name so I can actually like
Yeah, please. I'd
name
love to hear.
her. Um, Her name is let me see. Sorry. Uh, Robin Rue Simmons. She's the founder and executive director of First Repair. First Dash Repair is the name of the organization. Yeah, it took 2 years for them to approve the program and then a little bit longer for them to put out payments because there was a discrepancy about whether cash payments should be allowed or not. And then they did eventually decide people can opt for cash payments.
Oh, I also love that. I
Yeah,
I love cash. Cash to the like that cash payment's good too.
agree.
How yeah. Robin what Simmons? Sorry.
Rue, Rue.
Okay.